Edit audio.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robin Hopkins, and this is Well Adjusting, where I talk to people about life stuff, but not in an NPR way. It's more like we're at the bar, having cocktails, getting into your business sort of way.
It's giving drunk NPR.
Oh, and producer Steph is here too.
Hello.
Today we chat, well, escaping that crappy day job to pursue your passion. Well, hello, Well Adjusters. Today we've got family coming in. Jackson, brother of my pal Barron, is joining us, and he is ready for his moment in the hot seat. Now, Jackson is fresh out of college, and he is already trapped in a day job that just feels dangerously close to that old commercial from Dunkin' Donuts where the guy just rolls out of bed and he sleepily says, "Time to make the donuts," as he lifelessly wanders off to his job. Now, yes, I might be dating myself with that reference, but the point is that Jackson showing up at some data entry type job, we are sad for him already. Pushing around the papers and heading home to dream about a life that would actually light him up. Now, of course, mid-conversation, we realize that Jackson has gone from his parents' divorce to a sick father to then his dad passing away right after graduation. So none of that has set him up to, just go take risks or find his passion. The question for this episode is, can we help Jackson maybe stop worrying about what others want him to do? Can we help him dream and take some big risks? Well, let's find out.
I am Jackson Farmer. I am a 24-year-old gay guy in New York working a boring corporate job and excited to talk about it with Robin today.
Oh my God, that's the best little self-liner. What's the problem, Jackson, that we want to pick apart today? What are we talking about?
Yeah. So the problem I'm facing is that my job is steady, right? It's a boring office job. I work 9 to 5 with boring content. I'm writing boring reports, but it gives me a salary and I live in New York and I pay my rent and buy groceries. It affords me the life that I want, but it's really not satisfying. It's just an unsatisfying way to spend 8 hours of my day, Monday through Friday. So
that's a big part of your life. That's a big part of your life.
It is your life. Actually, ironically, a coworker told me a little over a year ago, reminded me of, I guess, the adage, how you live your days is how you live your life.
Ooh.
And that has stuck with me very intensely because I'm sitting in the office, bored, doing whatever I'm doing. And I'm like, oh my God, this is how I'm living my life.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm stuck is there's this job that has all these small perks and gives me a biweekly payment into my bank account.
We like that.
Yeah. Love it. Only want it to go up. Okay. But it's just not, it's not satisfying. On a personal level, it's boring content to work with. It's there's no way to motivate myself when I'm so bored. I think because I'm just a naturally curious person, which we can come back to, but I'm bored.
Well, my very first question right out of the gate is, do you know the thing that you want to be doing that you're not doing now?
No, I go back and forth between a ton of different things. I think that's partly why I feel a bit paralyzed with this job I'm in now.
Yeah.
Is, 1 week I'm like, ooh, I really could get my crap together and write these flush out essays I've started on different parts of the world that I've seen. I could focus on traveling. The next week I'm like, ooh, but I love New York, and I could focus on the part of me that loves being on stage and performing, and New York is where to do that. New York is where to learn comedy skills, acting skills, stuff like that. And then another, 2 weeks later, I'm like, ooh, I could go to grad school. And there's so many different cool things I could go study for a year, for 2 years. And then I meet with, one of my parents' old friends, and they're like, oh, you're young, quit your job, go travel. So, I feel torn so many different directions, which leaves me paralyzed and stuck in the same job that is not
Yeah.
satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So, like right out of the gate, it's fantastic that you're acknowledging you're just paralyzed and you're stuck. Like that's huge because at least I think there's many people who are stuck who don't even know they're stuck. So I think that's great. The mom in me is going to say this before we say anything else. Like, for the love of God, don't go to grad school unless you know what you want to do. Because
Yeah.
like, why take that debt on the whole
Yeah.
point of grad school? Like, I hate how culturally we become this like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get a master's. It's like you take on so much more debt. And the whole point of those higher level programs is to network and to set yourself up for the next thing. And if you don't know what it is, that's just such a waste of money and time.
Yeah.
Unless you just
Right.
like enjoy it, at which point you got the money, go for it. But I just had to say that. I could not stop myself.
Totally.
I'm going to get us back on track.
But I have a point on that if you want to
Okay,
go down
please,
that
please
rabbit.
go.
It's funny you say that because for most of my life, I thought I was going to be a physician. Not because I was particularly passionate about medicine. And I always say, like, my mom's a doctor. She practiced for, 15 years. And the assumption that I always get from friends, like professors, is always like, oh, you wanted to be a doctor because your mom was a doctor. And, there was some sort of family pressure. There was none of that. My mom actually told me many times, don't do this. Like, don't go into this. You don't want to deal with insurance. You don't want to deal with med school. Like, don't do it. But I was always good at science. I was always good at math. Med school was just this really easy route to a distinguished career. But when I got to undergrad, my freshman year of undergrad, I was having to select classes for the spring semester. And I remember, I'd started debating the whole pre-med idea, and the classes I signed up for, it mattered, like whether I was going to do pre-med or not. And I had so much anxiety, like shaking about like, oh my God, like, am I not going to do this? Am I not going to do the one thing that I've just always assumed I would do? But I realized, well, okay, if I'm questioning it, then why would I go to medical school if it's not a 150% commitment?
Okay, well, I'm already going to ask you some questions here because it's interesting that we did a little sidetrack, but it really wasn't a sidetrack. Like, in all the things that you have said so far, and we've only been chatting for like 4 seconds, you have referenced what everyone else thinks. You've referenced like family, friends, and what they think for you. And you've also referenced, when you've referenced yourself, you've referenced what you're good at. But I have nary a word about what you enjoy in this conversation. And so I'm curious, like, have you done any work, or do you think about, now, like, look, we're talking about work from a very privileged place right now of being able to do what you enjoy. So that's the left side of the, if you're looking at this like a fork in the road. But the right side is that many, many, many people start where you are in a position that they're like, well, it's fine. It pays the bills. And then they get a promotion and they're like, ooh, I got a 20% bump or a 10% bump. And that's nice. And then the next thing they know, they turn around and it's 20 years later and they built an entire career path in something that they didn't even love. And they're in the golden handcuffs. So I'm kind of like, all right, let's acknowledge the privilege of being able to do this, that you have this structure and a safety net and whatever. But let's come over onto a completely different road because you have this safety net and talk about how to build out something that's based in what you want to do.
Yeah.
Doesn't always mean you get to do it, but like, why wouldn't we start there?
Yeah, I've started that. It's been on my mind for a long time. The idea of, if not like ditch this job and travel the world, like what's a job that might be more fulfilling?
Yeah, because by the way, when you get back from your world travels, you'll still be in the same position.
Right.
And you'll take that stress on the road with you.
Yeah.
I did that in my 30s. Wasn't fun.
But the question of like, what do I want to do? What do I enjoy? Is hard for me to be realistic with. My instinct is to go into this whole disclaimer about like, well, I don't really have a clear idea of the things that I love that translate to the corporate world. And, my instinct is to give this disclaimer, give this context, which I think is just my anxiety coming out. Because when I start to think about like, okay, what do I love? I know I like to be on stage. And actually, my brother's wedding was a big, like, eye-opening moment for me where I was like, oh, I really love having a microphone in my hand. And like, maybe it was just I got like, 5 minutes of attention during a week that my brother had all of it. Maybe that's what it was. But I came back from that wedding thinking, oh my, like, I live in New York. I need to do something that gets me back on stage. I say back on stage. As a kid, I loved theater. I was always the lead in the school play. Okay, I wasn't some tree. I was 1 year in the second grade, but we were all trees, so it was different.
I was usually the tree.
Hey, us leads, we need good trees to work with. Okay.
You better back up, friend. You better back up. Beep, beep.
Hey,
beep.
no, I'm saying you are a great tree. I bet you are beautiful, luscious oak. Okay, stately.
Well, listen, I love what you're saying, but I can't help but wonder, this can't be the only area of your life where you're indecisive, is it?
No.
So this is how you show up in the world, is that it's tough for you to make decisions.
It's tough for me to make decisions. I think it's not a doomsday anxiety thing. It's not about like, oh my God, well, if I do this, then someone's going to die. And if I do this, then someone's going to get sick. And if I do, it's not like this irrational doomsday thinking. It's more of like an options paralysis.
Yeah.
I have a hard time deciding what I want off a menu. I am always the last one to order.
Is it you don't want to make a mistake?
I want what I'm going to enjoy the most.
And you don't know. And does your gut tell you?
Sometimes.
And do you ignore your gut?
I think sometimes my gut tells me, sometimes I ignore my gut. And it's interesting you say that because I think that comes back to my job now. My gut tells me, like, you're done here. Time to move on and time to do something that is enjoyable for 8 hours a day. And it's funny, my gut, I think, was really heavily involved in like signing up for improv classes just to like do something.
You did sign up for improv classes?
I did sign up. I'm going this month.
Oh, I love this.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
But part of what is tough about this situation of my job now is my gut feels in opposition to practicality. And if I talk to some of my coworkers that I've become friends with outside of the office, but it's pretty much a constant conversation of like, okay, we all want new jobs.
Yeah.
But if I bring that up, then it becomes, the conversation instantly goes to like, well, how are you going to make any money if you don't have a job for 6 months? And like all these very practical questions of like, yeah, I'm not just going to quit my job and then like go take an improv class and expect to be on SNL in 6 months. Like,
yeah, please don't, because I did that 30 years ago and I still don't get paid for it. So just please do not.
Yeah. And I feel like I've gotten advice from multiple people. It's like, well, don't quit your job until you have a plan in place.
But the plan in place is difficult for you because then you get into a conversation with yourself and you spin and then you go, I could do this. I could do that. I could also do this. I could do that. So it's like, I almost think you're asking the wrong question. Like, I think the what should I do, like, while that is the top line thing, you're not going to solve it because it's like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy of like, it's like a person who wants to lose weight and they're going to like McDonald's every day with a support group. And they're getting like, they're supersizing the shit out of it. And they're just like, so what would I do if I wanted to lose weight? But you're like in the thing that's making you gain weight. So the thing is indecisiveness. And so I'm wondering, have you thought about support for that? Because how can you wade through your thoughts? Like what's really great is you're 24 and you know yourself. You're 24 and you know, like, I struggle with being able to parse that information, trust my instincts, and move forward.
Yeah.
So that's the work that needs to be done. Like, I want to see you with a life coach.
Yeah.
I want to see you with someone, like, not just a therapist, but a person who's like skilled in the therapy side of things, but who's going to sit with you and be like, Jackson, you're doing that shit again.
Yeah.
And you said you were going to pick three, like exploring three different careers that sound interesting. You said you'd make 3 phone calls. You didn't. What's going on?
Yeah.
Like a target-based person to accompany you while you learn the skills of trusting your gut and making decisions and being like, nothing bad is going to happen. Because that's my next question is like, if you make a decision and you make a mistake, there's so much information in that mistake.
Yeah.
It's not even a mistake. It's just it didn't work out the way you wanted it to. And then
Right.
you make your next decision. But in making no decisions, either nothing happens or things get worse or both of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Which is,
Tell me, I said a lot. Tell me what you think.
yes, it's hard. Well, I think it's like right on track with what I struggle with. I think I get caught in this trap of, well, if I take a step forward in
Mhm.
whatever, area of life, if I take a step forward, then like I'm only going to get 1 foot down before the other shoe drops. Like,
Why do you think
like-
the other shoe is going to drop?
well, I think I'm still getting used to life without a sick dad.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was going to
For
take...
context.
For context, my dad
Yeah.
passed a year and a half ago, after about a year-long battle with cancer. So, I mean, it was just the worst year of him being sick, and then I didn't realize how long it would take afterwards or I guess I just didn't know what it would feel like to get used to the world again, meaning
Yeah.
the world
Yes.
where I'm not expecting a phone call or a text at any time. That's like the worst news a person could ever imagine.
Yeah.
So,
wait, Jackson, can I say something else for context? In addition to your dad dying in a cancer battle and all of that, you were the youngest in the family at home in the middle of a not so great divorce.
yeah,
During your high school years. So it's you had 2 very big losses that were during high school and college and
yeah,
there wasn't really a time for you to just be like, look at me, I'm going to season abroad,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like I did miss that. I think really when I think about college, I think about my first year was I finally was escaping home, after being the only one. There are 3 of us, children, 3 sons, but I was the only one that actually lived at home when our parents got divorced. And I was a senior in high school. So the beginning of college was really marked by that. My freshman year, the divorce was finalized. And then a few months after, 5 months after that, COVID hit. And obviously that was uncertain and weird for everyone. And then essentially as soon as COVID wrapped up, my dad was diagnosed. Literally a week before the public health emergency ended is when he was diagnosed. So when I think about college, I think about divorce, COVID, cancer.
It was so fun for you, right?
It was so fun. Of course, there were so many great moments, and I can't help but have fun, which I think is something I appreciate about myself. But still, I'm getting used to this world where there's not a shoe falling off.
Well, and also not just that, but the time I think of college as that time when you have a safe place to step away from your family and to start to define who you are as an adult and to step into your own, right? But you did not have that or get that.
No.
So,
No.
that's, you kind of lost a little something there. And I think that could be sitting with you. Now you're feeling well, now what the fuck do I do? And it just seems like there's a hesitancy of moving anything forward. But
Yes.
I want to be the voice to remind you. I know a lot of people who are when they go to buy an apartment or a house, they're well, what if I don't want to live here forever? I'm so then you sell it.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to think about decisions like that. Oh, if I take this job and it sucks, so you get another job.
Yeah.
And I know I'm making it sound very simple, but I want you to start to practice and try on that way of thinking of so what if I put myself in, I put myself, if you really are interested in theater or acting or the stage, or, I put myself through a 2-year intensive at night while I worked.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 5 nights a week. And it was a very incredible training program. It was William Esper Studios, and it was fantastic. And I have a training now, and I have a way of working, and I did that outside of college. So it's like there are ways to do all of this, but I want you to start to practice. You can't even get to that if you're so afraid to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
If you're afraid somebody's going to die, or we're going to go into lockdown, or just that fear, that feeling probably is just sitting there and it's just familiar.
It's just familiar. There's just, I don't like thinking about taking a big risk. And it feels like a big risk to leave my job for something like completely kind of out of left field. Well, and to your point about my indecisiveness, it took me about, 2.5 months to sign up for an improv class. But I did.
That's fear, though. But that's fear,
Yeah.
Jackson. I just don't want you to see that you are plagued with fear for making decisions.
Oh, I am. But a few months ago, this right before Thanksgiving, I met with a psychic medium who I've talked to before.
Yeah.
A few things happened. One, in terms of the stage and comedy getting back up there, she made some comments during the reading about that kind of pertained to the stage and performing. And she asked a question afterwards about it, and I clarified. It was right after my brother's wedding. And I was like, yeah, I'm feeling like just kind of inspired in that area. And like, I really could reconnect to like a childhood passion that I had so much fun with, as a kid. And she said, oh my gosh, like all the people in the spiritual realm that had showed up for me, all of them were clapping and jumping up and down. Were like, yes, 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 yes. And so Lisa told me it was very like energetically aligned to go after something kind of in the performing realm. And so then I talked to my dad a little bit about it, because I talked to my dad.
Yeah.
And he was so supportive of it. And I was reminded of all the times that I was like, as a kid, I would dance, I would put on, random performances of characters for my dad. And my dad was someone who was so supportive of me as a kid, like being on stage and just doing something that I was happy with. And in that same reading with Lisa, she had a strong image of a diploma on fire. And thinking about that later, like, yeah, I put myself through all this school, undergrad, got a job based on my degree, but there's this image of a diploma burning now in my mind since a few months ago. That, maybe that's not what I'm meant to do right now or forever. I say maybe, I'm like, I know I'm not meant to do that.
I was just going to say, I do want to point out that you once again are referring to what Lisa thinks about it, what your dad thinks about it, but again, not what Jackson thinks about it. And I do think that's something like a little rubber band on the wrist thing for you to be thinking about whenever you're on the outside trying to figure out what other people think about what you should do. I think that might be an indicator that you're avoiding trying to figure out what you want to do.
Something you said at the very beginning, which I thought was hilarious, was that you said med school was a really easy route to a distinguished career, which hilarious. No one thinks med school is like easy. Number one. But I think I wrote down that quote because I was like, that's so funny. But also like, I barely know you. I've met you like a handful of times, but never once would I think that like in your mind of your future, like what you wanted was like a distinguished career. So I guess I want to ask you, like, do you feel like that is a path? It feels like in opposition to what you believe. And I want to know, like, if you dreamed about a future that like had no basis in reality, like none at all. You could be living in like Guatemala and dating a woman for all we know. Like you could do whatever you want. Probably not
Probably
that.
not, though.
But
Guatemala, sure.
yeah. What would that look like if you had like wildest dreams? Like where are you living?
All over, everywhere. Like, actually, travel is something I come back to all the
Okay.
time. I want to see every corner of the world. I want to go everywhere, like every little village. You know, I want to talk to random people in a restaurant in Ecuador. I don't like places that look like their pictures. I felt the most alive during my dad's sickness when I was in Ecuador, actually. And I didn't really know what I was doing. My dad encouraged me to take advantage of my last spring break. I ended up in a car. I hired a car through this like hostel I was staying at to get to another part of the country. And I mean, I speak Spanish, so this helped, but I just made the best friend. And this guy that drove me for like 3.5 hours, we talked about everything. He told me all about the like ancient mythology in the Andes in that part of Ecuador and the Spanish takeover and how that's like affected their mythologies. He's told me about all the volcanoes in the story about how that volcano married that volcano. And well, that's their son, but the sun volcano, you know, erupted. Go figure. All of these like cool stories that you could not get from any sort of book or movie or TV show.
Mm-hmm.
That gets me going.
Just like getting curious about people's lives, getting curious about like the world.
And I think that's what's hard.
Else?
It's like the corporate world doesn't give two shits about anything interesting.
But maybe you don't have to be in the corporate world. Like that's
why
what
have
I'm
you
trying...
made some decision that you have to be in the corporate world? This is the whole thing. Is like Steph asked you one single question about what you like, and you lit up, and then you immediately hop, skipped, and jumped over to the corporate world's confining me, and I can't. No, the only thing that's confining you is you, honestly.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's confining you is that you have a job where you are required to show up into a setting that you don't like.
Yeah.
So, like, I just imagine a world where you followed that voice that was just talking to see what happens. Now, I have to be really clear. I'm not saying go quit your job as soon as we're done recording. Please don't do that. Like, please have a plan in place. That's why I want you to like talk to a life coach or somebody so that you can be like, how do you plan big changes? And how do you plan for like starting to say what makes me happy? And then how do I make money from it? There's certainly many, many, many jobs like, you know, where people travel and help people or learn about other cultures. There's like things like the Peace Corps. There's like teaching English as a second language.
You could literally have a podcast. Like there are so many different like avenues to, because the joy is not the work. The joy is in the like discovery, curiosity, learning about each other. And like you could get that through like reading, writing, traveling, talking, like medicine. Like there's so many different ways you can get that. I feel like you don't need to find the job. I think you need to be more connected with what the joy is.
Yeah.
What you want, not what other people want for you. Not what you're good at, but what you want.
I want to talk more about the corporate world thing because outside of like college, home was a mess. Home was a complete wreck. And I think the ideas that I grew up with from my parents were a semblance of solid ground. And I think focusing on like, okay, if I'm not going to go to med school, then like I'm going to get a practical job. I'm going to earn a good salary. Like that's what my parents taught me to do. And that mindset kept me sane during college when everything else was falling apart. But now I'm at this point, which interestingly, like my dad's not even around to enforce whatever mindset I claim he instilled in me. So I really can kind of do whatever I want and not worry about my parents' reactions.
That's what I'm saying. You missed that breaking free period in college.
Yes.
That happens
but
for a lot of people.
I think there's something more to that in college, especially when my dad was sick. And like I talked about going to Ecuador, and I had the most amazing experiences there. And while I was having the most amazing experiences that felt good, there was a big part of me, this big undertone that felt really guilty and still feels really guilty for doing that, for having that while my dad was like sick and dying in bed. Why did I not go to Denver on spring break and go see my dad, knowing that he was going to die in the next few months?
Because your dad wanted you to go to Ecuador. Your dad didn't want you to sit there.
He did. But even like before that, even just being here in New York, going to class, coming home. I lived with two of my best friends at the time. I'd have a great week, have like a great weekend, having fun out at whatever bars and having a great time. And every good, happy experience I felt guilty about to some degree, because I wasn't putting like the energy that I was putting into having fun, I could have been putting towards talking to my dad, talking to my brothers, talking to my mom. I just felt so guilty.
I know, Jackson. And it's hard because that is part of death, is the guilt of like, I should have done more, I could have done more. But I mean, your dad knew you loved him. Your dad knew you were there, and he would not want you carrying this. He just wouldn't.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't.
And I know he wouldn't, but I do think that that's a big part of this paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
That if I start having too much fun, if I start talking too much about like wanting to travel and meet new people in rural Kazakhstan, there's part of me that's like, bring it back. That's not how, like, that's wrong. Bring it back.
Well, the only good thing is that this is work you need to address.
Yeah.
If you want to come out of the paralysis, then you're going to have to allow yourself that grief. You're going to have to allow yourself to move through that, to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Are you in therapy?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So just keep on with that. I mean, it's just going to take time. It's going to take time to like be kind to yourself, that it's nobody's fault that your dad got cancer.
Yeah.
And it's nobody's fault that he died. And it's nobody's fault how much you were able to be there. It's like you do what you can do at the time and where you are.
I think that's what actually kind of makes things harder, because this guilt associated with good experiences is, at this point, it's not quite so concrete or identifiable or, describable. It's this like undertone that I've lived with, going back to what we said early on about like this familiarity. There's this feeling that I'm familiar with, and I'm sick of it being familiar.
Yeah.
What's hard, I thought earlier about this book that my brother Baron gave me called The Novel Cure. And it's written by a bibliotherapist. She recommends books based on like afflictions. And some of them are like, if you're dealing with major depressive disorder, like read this, like real intense. Some are like, if you're, struggling with diarrhea, like keep these books in your bathroom, like kind of all over the place. I found in the index, indecision or like indecisiveness. So I went there and was like, okay, I'll read a book about indecisiveness. And you know what she said? She didn't give any book recommendations. She said, surely there's a book in your house you haven't read yet. Just pick it up and read it. I was like, well, that wasn't what I was looking for.
But it is in a way, though. Like, she's saying the thing that we're saying, which is like, I just want you to make choices. It'll just become a data point. It'll become a data point of like, well, that was a good idea, or that was a horrible idea. Yeah. But I got new information and I won't be doing that again.
Yeah.
Like it's there's so few things that are irreversible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Do I believe that statement? Do I need to check myself on that? I mean, certainly like murder is irreversible. You can't go back from that. There's some things you can say, but I think a lot of things we do in the world, you can come back from it.
Yeah.
my like goal for you, my like love for you, I want just you to like do more fuck around and find out.
Well, yeah. Recently, I was talking to a friend and I said that I want to get into more fuck shit, which I feel like same idea.
Yeah.
And I said that to my therapist and she gave me homework. She gave me homework last week because I told her I do not have a problem taking myself to lunch, to dinner, to a bar. I don't have a problem at all. But I'm taking myself to a bar with a book and I'll sit and read a while, maybe have a drink or two and leave. So my homework was to go someplace, go to a bar and talk to a stranger, total stranger, not like no crutches.
Did you do it?
Not yet. No, so she gave me this homework on
No.
last Friday and I thought I had till Friday, but I forgot she moved our appointment. I'm seeing her later today and I have to tell her, oh, I didn't do my homework. But I think I got some good content, some good data points, if you will. I was out on Friday to watch Drag Race with a friend of mine from work, actually. And a friend of his who I have heard about but never really met was there. And I was like, this is perfect. I'll chat to him. Well, he really did not want to chat. He really didn't want to chat that much. I'm sitting there at the bar having my drink and I'm like, he actually doesn't really seem fun. I don't want to talk to him.
Was there like a fear associated with that or no?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, how can you be the person that wants to talk to the random car driver for 3 hours, but also be the person who's scared to talk to the rando in the bar?
He's like, I don't know. That's the problem.
I don't know. I think I think why I love traveling so much is there's a certain like freedom and detachment from everyday life. But in everyday life, I do experience that fear of, it's not like I sit in the bar and I feel scared, but I do feel uncomfortable. But that's what my homework was about, like addressing that discomfort and acting against it. Like, I don't know what I'm going to say to this person, this random stranger.
In spite of the fear, we move forward.
This is like the crux of everything I was trying to say is like, I feel like there is like travel Jackson and like dreamer Jackson and like who you want to become Jackson. And then I feel like there is distinguished career Jackson and like, I don't know if this person's going to be fun Jackson.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe just like once a month or whatever feels good to you, try on Travel Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in New York City. Literally go to freaking Harlem.
Like
go to a neighborhood. Come to Williamsburg. Come to, Crown Heights. Go to a neighborhood that maybe feels a little like you can put on a persona or whatever. Like it's not your home, like neighborhood in New York City, and try that on and see who you find.
Yeah. I actually really like that idea. It reminds me of the artist Doechii.
Literally marry me. I'm obsessed with her.
Love Doechii so much. But I saw an interesting like factoid about her that Doechii is not her given name. It's like Kayla or something.
Mm-hmm.
But she said that in like middle school, she was getting bullied. And so she came up with an alter ego named Doechii. But she was like, I don't know, Kayla might be getting bullied, but Doechii is a badass bitch that is not standing for any of that. And like, just developed this whole other persona that she's kind of kept as her like, okay, well, whatever is happening to real me is not happening to Doechii. Like Doechii is this badass persona that I can put on and go be my confident self, whatever. That's kind of how I'm thinking about this. Maybe it's like, I'm going to go to Greenpoint. Yeah. I still want my name to be Jackson because I like my name.
Yeah.
But
it's all very fake until
also,
you make it.
It's a tool to get you to the place where both of those are existing at the same time.
Yeah.
I want you to just spend time thinking about the idea that maybe nothing horrible will happen if you just try shit.
Yeah.
And to try some shit. Like to once a week. I don't know if that's too much. Once every other week. Whatever time frame you like. But I want it to be a little uncomfortable. You do something that takes you out of your comfort zone. Like you try something. Like what are you
doing
to an
tonight?
open mic.
do you want to come to this thing? I'm going to this happy hour for people in media. It's like a fun little thing that happens once every 2 months.
Okay.
I'm going to invite you. You can come, but you don't have to.
Okay.
That's my other bit of homework is I want you to put support in place. Maybe a life coach, somebody who's going to keep you on track for making decisions.
Yeah.
Like I'd love to see a year from now, you're doing something totally different, but you need to think about what that is. And you need a helper to help you plan that out because the emotions and the fear are also intertwined around this decision making.
Yeah. But also like, there's just so many options. What if you talk to your company and we're like, I really like love this part of me. As part of my next promotion, I have like an idea for like a podcast we can start or a blah, blah, blah we could do that like will help drive this and this and this. Like there's so many ways to bring what you love into your life. I just think spending the time of exploring what those are and what parts of you bring that out. I made you an acronym because Robin has this acronym for taking a moment, which I don't think, I mean, you could probably take a moment too, because you're a doer like us. But I made you an acronym that's SAGE. And I think it will help with like decisions. So S is for set deadline. So like if you're like choosing from a menu, the deadline is I have 2 minutes. You know, if you're deciding what to do next week as you're like pushing yourself out, you have till Friday. The A is accept that mistakes are just part of it. I don't know if it feels better, like nothing's a mistake or accept the mistake, whatever feels better for you. The G is what's your goal? So it can either be like, what's your goal for this like one thing? Like I want to eat something carby and delicious, or like I want to push myself a little this week, or I want to get closer to theater, you know? And then E is checking in with your emotions. How are you feeling after these 3 other things? And then you just move forward because you have the deadline.
Yeah.
So I'm going to send you an email with that.
I love that you made an acronym right on the spot.
Yeah,
I love that
amazing.
Producer stuff.
Thanks. I'm amazing. No, I'm just kidding. But I'll send it to you because I think it could just be helpful to have a system. Like I get so overwhelmed like from anxiety stuff and I'm like, I just need like a fucking system. Like I need like a North Star or I need a whatever. And it's not that the system necessarily works. It's that you do the same thing over and over again. And then eventually it like becomes part of your body or something.
Yeah.
So those are my homeworks. Sage and fuck around.
One of the things you said in that was so good is that you took Sage and applied it to picking your main course. Like you get 2 minutes. Like I love the idea of starting small with decisions so that you can build this trove of experiences where even if it goes a different way than you had hoped, you didn't die. On to the next.
Yeah. I like that.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for like, coming in and sharing this. Like I do think that go a little gentler on yourself. You have had a lot of shit come up. You've been in the middle of a lot of it. This is going to take a time, and a portion of this is just your early 20s. And I am here to say you are going to come out of this, and you are going to know what you want, and it's all going to be okay.
Yeah. Thanks. I need that reassurance.
Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you, guys. This was so much fun.
You have reached the well-adjusting expert of the day.
What's up, guys? My name is Anthony Clark.
And I'm Melanie Clark.
And we are
The Amazing Clarks.
We're both award-winning certified life and love coaches and a husband and wife duo that have been coaching together as a team for 24 years and that have been passionately in love for 34.
I would say my advice for someone who's stuck in what they're doing and keep doing the thing that they hate is to try new things. Like in the evenings and on the weekends, try things online. Sometimes little baby steps can get us excited. And by taking a baby step, we'll see new possibilities because we move ourselves out of our current reality and we start to step into a new reality.
When we get clients that come to us and they feel frustrated with where they're at, they're actually waiting for permission to chase their dream, to go after what they want. So when people come to us because they want that permission, first and foremost, we have them to get clarity on what it is that they're looking for. We have a saying that sometimes before you chase your dream, you have to catch reality. And that reality is that job that's helping you to pay your bills, that's helping you to keep that roof over your head and keeping you fed. Even though you don't want that for the rest of your life, have gratitude and appreciation for it. because it's serving a great purpose. Now, once you can find that gratitude in that situation, you'll feel relief. You won't feel so desperate.
Yeah.
And when you're in that state of calmness and relief, you get more clarity. And then you attract more opportunities, people, and experiences that match that. And so by being grateful for where you're at, it'll help you to move to more gratitude and show you the light of where you need to go next.
Yeah, into the next thing.
The next thing. A lot of people, they live for other people instead of for themselves. They're worried about what everybody else thinks, everybody else's expectations of them. And then many times they find that they're unhappy. Why is that? And that's because just like our fingerprint is unique, our path and way of being here in life is supposed to be unique. And so you're following someone else's path or their fingerprint, it's not going to work out for you.
Think about our upbringing. Our parents tell us what to do, what to think, how to be for most of our lives. And then we become adults and all of a sudden we have to make all these decisions. So we're trained to look outside of ourselves for answers. And so when someone comes to the point of they're like, I'm always asking everybody else what I should do. It's a sign to go within. It's a sign to get quiet and really, really connect with that inner part of yourself that is your guidance. Everyone has their own internal guidance, but they don't know it. So they tend to look everywhere outside of themselves for help and instead of going within. So one of the things that you can do is meditation, being out in nature, asking yourself questions. What's best for me? What would I like? What brings me joy? What is my purpose? And as soon as you start asking those questions, the answers start to come from within if you can be quiet long enough to hear those answers come to you.
And I would also like to add that something that's really important in life in general, it's hope.
Mm-hmm.
Without hope, we give up. Start watching videos of people that have done it. Go on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
There are tons of stories that people that have succeeded.
Yeah.
And just by doing something like that, it can build up your hope and your confidence, which would then lead to other thoughts and other things, experiences that you'll attract. But without hope, we'll give up.
Yeah.
And when we give up, nothing happens. We definitely
can't move.
We can't move.
You can't move when you're hopeless.
Right.
Think of your life as a book that you're writing, and you're writing it as you go. And your story is so unique. You're going to have plot twists. You're going to have drama. You're going to have joy. You're going to have sadness. And all of it is important for your story. So no matter how you write your story, it's perfection. So be gentle with yourself. And in our coaching, we have something we call EIP. And EIP means everything is perfect. Even when it's fallen apart so something else can come together. So be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself, and know this is just a part of your story. It's not the entire story.
EIP, everything is perfect.
Such good advice, and what a lovely conversation with Jackson. Am I right? Now, before we all say goodbye, I did want to share with you a little post-recording update story. Okay, so you might remember the moment where Steph invited Jackson out with her that night. And I don't know if it was me, but he didn't sound like he was very convinced. Well, cut to later that night. I get a picture texted to me of the two of them at a bar and a voice memo from Steph. I, of course, was already in bed. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thank you, Jackson, for sharing your story. Go out there, be big, be bold. We're watching. And thank you to the amazing Clarks for their sage wisdom. If you want more info about them, check them out on IG at The Amazing Clarks. For more Robin, and you may need that, you probably don't need it, but if you do, you can follow me at Real Rob Hops on all the platforms, all the socials, as the kids today say. Well Adjusting is an Edit Audio original series. It's exec produced by Steph Colburn and Robin Hopkins. Our producer and editor is Maria Passingham, and our production manager is Kathleen Speckert. Thank you to the entire Edit Audio team and to you for listening. Oh, hey, before you take out those AirPods, this show is just for entertainment. If you are in need of help, please, please, please reach out to a professional. Go ahead and get that help. You deserve it.